Hello, everyone. Tonight, I'm bringing you 3 terrifying stories from real human experiences. These aren't ghost stories invented for fun. These are tales rooted in the moments where ordinary life turned into something unexplainably dark. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's begin. Story 1. The Knock on the Window. It was the winter of 2011, one of the coldest I can remember. I had just moved into a small one-bedroom apartment on the very edge of town. It wasn't much to look at. Yellowed wallpaper that peeled in the corners, a heater that groaned and barely worked, floors that creaked so loudly I could hear my own steps echoing in other rooms. But it was cheap, and I was desperate. The living room had a large window facing the street. At least, it was supposed to face a street. But the truth was, the street was barely used, practically abandoned. No street lamps, no sidewalks. Just a strip of cracked asphalt swallowed by weeds. When night fell, the glass of that window became a black mirror. I couldn't see outside at all, only my own reflection staring back at me. The first week passed uneventfully. I'd come home late from work, eat something out of the microwave, and collapse on the couch in front of the TV. I'd fall asleep half watching reruns, with the soft glow of the screen filling the room. Then one night, close to 2 a.m., I heard it. A faint, rhythmic sound. Tap, tap, tap. It was so soft at first. I thought I was dreaming. My eyes opened, adjusting to the dim light of the TV. I muted the sound. There it was again. Tap, tap, tap. From the window, a chill ran through me. The apartment was on the 3rd floor. There was no balcony, no fire escape, nothing but empty space beneath that window. So what could possibly be knocking? I sat there frozen, heart hammering. After a long moment, I forced myself to glance at the glass. At first, all I saw was my reflection. Tired, pale, eyes wide. But then something shifted. Just for a second, I thought I saw another reflection layered over mine. A pale face, featureless, pressed close against the glass. I scrambled off the couch, yanking the curtains shut as if that thin fabric could protect me. My body shook as I checked the locks on the door, then every window in the apartment. They were all secure. I told myself it must have been my imagination, the result of exhaustion and too much caffeine. But the next night, it happened again. Tap, tap, tap. This time louder, clearer, more deliberate. I stared at the curtain, terrified to pull it back. My breath came in short bursts. My hands sweated. For several minutes, I sat in silence, hoping it would stop. Eventually, I worked up the courage to peek. My fingers shook as I slowly pulled the curtain aside. Nothing, just darkness, just the abandoned street. I didn't sleep for the rest of that night. Over the following week, the knocking returned almost every night. Always between 2 and 3 a.m. Sometimes it was faint, barely audible. Other times it was sharp and urgent, as though someone wanted me to answer. A few times when I dared to look, I saw the pale shape again. Something like a face, but distorted, too close to the glass, as though it were pressed against it from outside. I began leaving lights on. I kept the TV running, music playing, anything to drown out the silence. Still, I couldn't escape it. My skin crawled every time I sat in that room. My eyes constantly darted to the window, waiting for the sound. Finally, I invited a friend over. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't want him to think I was losing my mind, but I hinted that the apartment made me nervous at night. We stayed up late together, talking, drinking, trying to laugh it off. Then, at exactly 2:15 a.m., it happened. Tap, tap, tap. The room fell silent. My friend's smile faded. He looked at me wide-eyed. "You heard that too, right?" he whispered. I nodded, frozen. The sound came again, louder, sharper. We both turned slowly toward the window. I felt my body tense, every muscle screaming not to move. My friend whispered, "What the hell is that?" I swallowed hard, my throat dry, and reached for the curtain. My fingers gripped the fabric as though it weighed 100 pounds. I pulled it aside in one swift motion. The window was empty. No one outside. No face. No figure. Only the black, endless street. My friend swore under his breath, pacing the room. I swear I heard it. I swear. So, did I? That was the night I decided to break my lease, no matter the cost. Sleep had become impossible, and the terror was consuming me. I packed what I could within a week and arranged to leave. When I told the landlord, I expected an argument, maybe even a penalty. Instead, he just looked at me for a long moment. His eyes were tired, his mouth a thin line. Then he said quietly, "You lasted longer than the others." Story 2. The Man in the Stairwell. In 2016, I lived in a crumbling apartment block on the west side of the city. It wasn't the kind of place anyone chose if they had better options. 12 stories of stained concrete, flickering hallway lights, water pipes that rattled through the night. But it was cheap, and that mattered more to me than comfort. My unit was on the 6th floor, just high enough to feel isolated, just low enough that I could still take the stairs when the elevator inevitably broke. Most people avoided the stairwell. It was narrow, dimly lit, and it always smelled faintly of mildew and rust. The walls were stained with water damage, and the bulbs overhead buzzed and flickered, as though they were one step away from dying completely. I used it only when I had to, but I never liked it. One night, after a brutal late shift, I got home close to midnight. As usual, the elevator was out of order. With a heavy sigh, I pushed open the door to the stairwell, greeted by the musty air and the faint hum of a single working bulb. I started climbing. 1st floor, 2nd, 3rd. The sound of my shoes echoed far too loudly, bouncing around the empty concrete shaft. On the 4th floor, I noticed it. A man. He was standing perfectly still in the corner of the landing, half hidden in shadow. His clothes were ragged, layers of jackets and a scarf, even though it was summer. His head was tilted downward, face obscured. I froze mid-step. The stairwell was silent, except for the buzzing light overhead. Sorry," I muttered automatically, as though I'd intruded on something. He didn't respond, didn't move, just stood there, head bowed. My pulse quickened. I tried to brush it off. Maybe he was homeless, maybe just sleeping upright. Forcing myself to move, I hurried past him, my footsteps echoing even louder now. By the time I reached the 5th floor, I couldn't resist glancing back. He had turned his head, just his head, slowly, deliberately, and though his face was still hidden in shadow, I could feel his eyes on me. I bolted the rest of the way up, practically sprinting. My breath came in sharp gasps as I reached my apartment, fumbling with my keys, slamming the door shut behind me, and locking it twice. For a long time, I leaned against the door, listening. Nothing followed me. I told myself it was fine. Harmless. Just some stranger. But that night, at exactly 3 a.m., I woke to the sound of footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, dragging. They stopped outside my door. I held my breath, too terrified to move. For several long seconds, silence. Then came a sound that made my skin crawl. Scratching. Long, steady strokes, like fingernails being dragged down the wood. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. I wanted to scream, to run, but fear pinned me to the bed. The scratching went on and on. 10 minutes, maybe 15, then silence. I stayed awake until dawn, listening for every creak, every sound from the hallway. The next morning, through the peephole, I saw nothing. The hallway was empty, but near the stairwell door at the far end, there were streaks of dried mud smeared across the linoleum. Long streaks, like someone had stood there for hours before leaving. Over the following weeks, it kept happening. Always between 2 and 3 a.m., the footsteps would return, sometimes scratching, sometimes just standing there. I never opened the door to check. I couldn't. One night, though, I made a mistake. I had just fallen asleep when the footsteps came again. I sat up, heart racing. But this time, I thought I heard whispering. Faint, almost inaudible but real. A voice just outside the door. I crept closer, holding my breath, and pressed my ear against the wood. At first, only silence. Then, open, the voice was low, rasping. My blood turned to ice. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over my own feet. The whisper came again, louder this time, more insistent. Open the door. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. I backed away until I hit the far wall of the living room, staring at the door as if it might burst open at any second. The whisper stopped. The next morning, I found a long scratch across the door, not just on the surface, but deep, gouged into the wood, as though someone had dug in with a knife or claw. After that, I couldn't take it anymore. I started avoiding my apartment at night, sleeping on a friend's couch, working extra shifts just so I didn't have to be home. Still, the few nights I was forced back, the footsteps always came, always outside my door. And the worst part? I never saw the man again. Not once. Not in the stairwell, not in the hallway. But deep down, I know it was him. And I know he's still out there. Story 3. The Forgotten Room. Back in college, I rented a massive Victorian house with 3 other students. The house was the kind of place you could get lost in. Narrow staircases that didn't seem to lead where they should. Ceilings so high you had to crane your neck just to see the cobwebs in the corners. And long, drafty hallways that stayed cold no matter how high we turned up the heat. It was beautiful in its own way, with stained glass windows and carved wooden banisters. But there was something unsettling about it too. You know that feeling when a building seems like it's watching you? That's how the house felt, as though it were alive, waiting for us to let our guard down. Most of the rooms were unused. There were more bedrooms than we needed, strange storage spaces, closets that seemed far too deep. The attic was the worst. Dust choked the air, and the wooden beams groaned with every step. We rarely went up there. Until one afternoon, I was digging through boxes for some old furniture, and I noticed a door I'd never seen before. It was hidden behind a stack of trunks, almost perfectly concealed. Narrow, with peeling paint and sealed shut with a heavy, rusted padlock. Curiosity got the better of me. The lock looked ancient, and after a few minutes of fiddling, it snapped open in my hands. The door creaked when I pushed it. Behind it was a small room, no bigger than a closet. No windows, no lights. The air inside was so stale it felt like breathing in dust. The wallpaper had rotted away in strips, leaving dark stains on the plaster. And in the center of the room sat a wooden chair. That was it, just a chair, facing the doorway, angled as though it had been waiting for someone to enter. I backed out quickly, shutting the door. At dinner that night, I told my roommates. We laughed about it, called it the murder room, made jokes about ghosts. But behind the laughter, I think all of us felt the same unease. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard noises above me, slow, deliberate creaks across the attic floor. I told myself it was the house settling, or maybe one of the roommates walking around. But the next morning, everyone swore they'd been in their rooms. Over the following days, the atmosphere in the house shifted. We heard whispers in the walls, faint but distinct, as though someone was talking just beyond hearing. One roommate said she heard her name being whispered when she was home alone. Another woke to find the chair from the hidden room sitting in the hallway outside his bedroom. None of us admitted to moving it. We grew paranoid. None of us wanted to go upstairs. We locked our doors at night. We started leaving lights on. But the house didn't stop. One evening, I returned late from class. The others were already asleep. As I climbed the stairs, I saw that the attic door, the one we usually kept shut, was open a crack. I stood there, heart pounding, staring into the darkness above. Then, from the blackness, came the sound of breathing. Slow, heavy, human. I slammed the door shut and ran to my room, shaking so badly I could hardly turn the key in the lock. The next morning, the attic door was wide open. That was when we decided we had to seal the hidden room for good. We brought boards, nails, and hammers. Together, we pushed the chair back inside, closed the narrow door, and began hammering it shut. The air felt thick, as if the house itself resisted. Every hammer strike echoed too loudly, bouncing through the halls like a warning. And then, as we nailed the final board across the frame, knock. We froze. Knock, knock, knock. 3 deliberate knocks from the other side of the door. The sound vibrated through the wood, through the tools in our hands, through our bones. None of us moved. None of us spoke. Finally, one of my roommates dropped his hammer and whispered, "Let's get out of here." We didn't sleep that night. We sat together in the living room, every light on, waiting for dawn. Within a month, we had all moved out, abandoning our lease, losing our deposits, leaving the house behind without a second thought. But even now, years later, I still dream about that room. I dream of peeling wallpaper, stale air, and the chair waiting in the dark. Sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake up to a sound, faint but unmistakable. Knock, knock, knock. And I lie there in bed, staring into the shadows of my room, wondering if the house ever truly let us go. And that's where tonight's journey ends. 3 stories, 3 glimpses into moments where ordinary life brushed against something darker. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. But tell me, which story stuck with you the most? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next night of horror. Because the scariest stories aren't the ones we invent, they're the ones that really happened.